a Tuesday. Glad to see you. Glad you guys showed up. As you guys roll in here, I'm noticing I appreciate it and I understand. I don't even have to look at the chat. I know what's going on. How come you didn't set up the time like 15 minutes ago, JR? How come you didn't let us get knowing and we're going to come in here sooner or later? You know, I'm not getting any notifications, right, JR? I apologize. These things happen. There was too much happening literally as I was preparing today, rolling up to this time when I got to jump on at noon Eastern. These guys kept talking and I kept listening. And I said, okay, I'm going to cut this off at some point when I'm going to stop listening to these two fools talk to our military leaders. And it was hard to quit it because every time I said I would have cut it off and I looked for the next thing that they said, I was like, well, actually, I'm glad I didn't miss that either. Anyways, as you guys may usually know, we do this every day at noon. Let your friends know, let your family know, let your moms know too. I would love it. Also, since you are here, go ahead and hit the like there, the little thumbs up there, and also share the stream, subscribe if you haven't yet. Let folks know what we're doing over here at the watch party. Because there was a lot. There was a lot that was said. I over prepare because once I start going down some pathway and some uh ter- terrible road that these guys are talking, I sometimes just can't stop, and I kept going. So I'm breaking this down a little bit. Pete Hegseth spoke to military leaders. Now, by the way, yesterday I talked about that. And I mentioned how they're coming. It's going to be some secret meeting. No one knows what they're really going to talk about. I assumed it was going to be some level of them looking for loyalty to this president. That's what I speculated based off of, normal history and everything else that they've been talking about. But I was wrong. They did the loyalty pledge publicly. Let's watch what happened here. Let's start with Peter Hegseth and what he really wants to focus on with the military and the reasons why, it's so weak, as they keep saying.
But today, at my direction, every member of the Joint Force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year, every year of service. Also today, at my direction, every warrior across our Joint Force is required to do PT every duty day. Should be common sense. I mean, most units do that already, but we're codifying it. And we're not talking like hot yoga and stretching. Real hard PT, either as a unit or as an individual. At every level, from the Joint Chiefs to everyone in this room to the youngest private, leaders set the standard. And so many of you do this already. Active, Guard, and Reserve. This also means grooming standards. No more beards, long hair, superficial individual expression. We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to standards. Because it's like the broken windows theory of policing. It's like when you let the small stuff go, the big stuff eventually goes. So you have to address the small stuff. This is on duty, in the field, and in the rear. If you want a beard, you can join Special Forces. If not, then shave. We don't have a military full of Nordic pagans. But unfortunately, we have had leaders who either refuse to call BS and enforce standards, or leaders who felt like they were not allowed to enforce standards. Both are unacceptable. And that's why today, at my direction, the era of unprofessional appearance is over. No more beardos. The era of rampant and ridiculous shaving profiles is done. Simply put, if you do not meet the male-level physical standards for combat positions, cannot pass a PT test, or don't want to shave and look professional, it's time for a new position or a new profession.
There you saw Pete Hegseth walking around, standing in front of military leaders that he called in from around the world at quite the expense to talk then about appearance. You guys need to shave. Did you know you can't have that long haircut? Never heard of that before in the U.S. military. That's something brand new, apparently, that Pete Hegseth is bringing along. But the other parts that he did want to highlight was physical fitness, male level of physical level ability. He gets into more of that more the deeper. But I want to point out one thing really quick. Since this is a presentation president and a presentation administration that wants to do nothing but try and show and promote and look a certain way to cover up all of the inadequacies and their incompetent nature, they do things like have this whole set. You see Pete Hegseth walk around in front of that American flag because, he's the Secretary of War. It kind of reminds you of something. You know why? Because these guys are clowns.
And will not tolerate a loser. Americans play to win all the time. I wouldn't give a hoot in hell for a man who lost and laughed. That's why Americans have never lost and will never lose a war. Because the very thought of losing is hateful to Americans. An army is a team. It lives, eats, sleeps, fights as a team. This individuality stuff is a bunch of crap. The bilious bastards who wrote that stuff about individuality for the Saturday Evening Post don't know anything more about real battle than they do about fornicating.
For those of you guys that don't know, that was the movie Patton from 1970, and apparently Pete Hegseth or somebody in the Department of War, or maybe it was in Trump's circles, decided to say, you know what, Pete, if you're going to talk to all these folks and bring them all in from all over the world and have this long, stupid speech where honestly there is a point, which we'll get to, at least act like you're Patton from the movie, at least. Did anybody else notice that? It was pretty blatant. The huge American flag behind this guy as he walks around and looks at everyone and acts like he's the best thing ever. But there was a message. Let's get to the message. There was a lot going on. I just want to point out that part first. Because again, like I said yesterday, the whole point of this is what I seem like was they're going to get rid of certain people that are not loyal enough, shave down, replace, all that stuff. It's not done as blatantly as people probably would have imagined, but it's also not that subtle either. Here's what Pete Hegseth was talking about.
You have seen, and the media has obsessed over, I have fired a number of senior officers since taking over. The previous chairman, other members of the Joint Chiefs, combatant commanders, and other commanders. The rationale for me has been straightforward. It's nearly impossible to change a culture with the same people who helped create or even benefited from that culture, even if that culture was created by a previous president and previous secretary. My approach has been simple. When in doubt, assess the situation, follow your gut, and if it's the best for the military, make a change. We all serve at the pleasure of the president every single day. You have seen.
You hear that rhetoric? So I fired all these guys, and of course I fired them because they're not doing the things that go with what we're setting up here under this president. We all serve at the pleasure of the president. We do not serve the United States. Remember, it's not as blatant and straightforward as them in some dark room where they all put a hand up and swear an oath to Donald Trump. But he's saying, if you don't like this stuff, you can get the hell out or we can fire your ass. But what you have to understand is we work at the pleasure of the president. No, he drives it home a little bit more, though.
Leaders who have given decades to our great republic at great sacrifice to yourselves and to your families. But if the words I'm speaking today are making your heart sink, then you should do the honorable thing and resign. We would thank you for your service. But I suspect, I know, the overwhelming majority of you feel the opposite. These words make your hearts full. You love the War Department because you love what you do, the profession of arms. You are hereby liberated to be an apolitical, hard-charging, no-nonsense, constitutional leader that you joined the military to be.
So if these things that I'm saying makes your heart sink, leave, resign, get the hell out of here. We want people who are loyal to this mission and this mission only. And that's apparently just to serve at the pleasure of Donald Trump. That's how they're setting this whole thing up. Well, thank you for your service. Just get the hell out because we need certain people who are war fighters. So again, you would think something like this maybe would like, cool off recruiting, but what it may do is cool off recruiting from the types of people that know they don't want to live in this kind of world where there's, as we're going to get to, the ragtag nature of what he wants to implement as these rules, which will only be under Donald Trump doing whatever he wants. And if you want to, join the military for anything else other than war fighting and murder and killing, then this isn't the place for you. You can see the signals that they're putting out to the certain people that they want. And again, he was not subtle. He drove the point home. These are the kinds of folks, and this is the kind of messaging that he's giving to certain folks that he wants to know. This is where this military is going. This is how they're going to approach international situations. Watch.
Should our enemies choose foolishly to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department. In other words, to our enemies, F-A-F-O. If necessary, our troops can translate that for you. Should our enemies
bro, everyone can translate that. That's not like a troop thing. They kind of say that online all the time. F-A-F-O. He thinks he's like this charismatic leader that somehow is standing in front of all these guys and is leading them into the charge of fucking people up as much as possible, because that's generally his message. So if anybody wants to challenge us, well, I tell you what, there's going to be lethality, there's going to be violence, there's going to be savagery, there's going to be dismemberment, there's going to be complete and utter dismantling of normal wartime standards, practices, and principles. Because that's where he went next. No, you almost feel like you have to make this stuff up for him to get to these degrees. This is exactly what they're talking about. We've got the setup of who they want in place. If you guys aren't on board, get the hell out. And this is the type of thing that they want to then do with these war fighters.
we fight to win. We unleash overwhelming and punishing violence on the enemy. We also don't fight with stupid rules of engagement. We untie the hands of our warfighters to intimidate, demoralize, hunt, and kill the enemies of our country. No more politically correct and overbearing rules of engagement. Just common sense, maximum lethality, and authority for warfighters. That's all I ever wanted as a platoon leader. And it's all my E6 squad leaders ever wanted, back to that E6 rule. We let our leaders fight their formations, and then we have their back. It's very simple, yet incredibly powerful.
They're detaching from normal rules of engagement. We're going to hunt, we're going to kill. No more this politically correct, overbearing rules of engagement. We're backing away from that stupid stuff. Yo, I'm just saying. They have this whole presentation. He stands in front of the American flag. He calls on all these military leaders. Everyone's distracted from all the shit that they've got to go through that this administration continues to output every day. While this guy blatantly, openly on television, broadcast on multiple cable news channels is up there saying, we're detaching. The United States of America is detaching from the normal rules of engagement. Maybe we're going to, use chemical agents on folks. I mean, it's not like we haven't before, but maybe we'll use chemical agents on folks blatantly and openly to hunt and kill whoever we deem to be that enemy, similar to those folks that they've been bombing in the middle of the ocean on fishing boats and stuff. Because again, whenever you have this kind of approach and you say that you're going to go and kill all of your enemies, we just have to trust that you know who your enemies are, or that you think the people that you're calling your enemies so that folks can back you up on it will just be agreed to. It's a dangerous thing to then go into. He's not done. I'm telling you, there's so much more to this. So again, that's them detaching from, the normalcies of engagement. Now, this is about preemptive war.
And as history teaches us, the only people who actually deserve peace are those who are willing to wage war to defend it. That's why pacifism is so naive and dangerous. It ignores human nature and it ignores human history. Either you protect your people and your sovereignty, or you will be subservient to something or someone. It's a truth as old as time. And as history teaches,
peace only comes to the people that deserve it, the people that are actually going to wage war to defend it. Think about the logic of that statement. You only get peace if you then go to war. This is the same thing that Trump has been talking about. I'm the president of peace. I'm just going to attack everybody that I dislike, and then that'll be peaceful. He's thinking about peaceful in his little brain. So again, preemptive war is going to create peace for the United States of America, but what's it going to create for everyone else? Who cares? Who cares? We're going to go on the attack and go to screwing as many things up internationally as possible and waging war and calling it peace. I mean, it's not that different than what we've always done, except he's a lot more blatant about it. But when it comes to the leadership, again, they're transitioning things over from normalcy to the toxic nature of what they want. And in order to do that, you have to call normalcy toxicity, and you have to call all the things that he keeps talking about doing, not that one, the things that he keeps talking about doing, call that normal. And then the whole thing about detaching from politically correct statements, all that for some reason is toxic. Here, watch this.
Real toxic leadership is endangering subordinates with low standards. Real toxic leadership is promoting people based on immutable characteristics or quotas instead of based on merit. Real toxic leadership is promoting destructive ideologies that are an anathema to the Constitution and the laws of nature and nature's God, as Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence. The definition of toxic has been turned upside down, and we're correcting that. That's why today at my direction, we're undertaking a full review of the department's definitions of so-called toxic leadership, bullying, and hazing, to empower leaders to enforce standards without fear of retribution or second guessing. Of course, you can't do like nasty bullying and hazing. We're talking about words like bullying and hazing and toxic. They've been weaponized and bastardized inside our formations, undercutting commanders and NCOs. No more. Setting, achieving, and maintaining high standards is what you all do. And if that makes me toxic, then so be it.
That's how you flip the script on reality. I mean, it's not like it's very well done or works all that much, but I guess it works on people that hear things like, well, I'm a bully. I like to haze. I'm a toxic. People keep telling me I'm toxic. Maybe if we just flip the script on what toxicity really is, we can claim that we're all about toxicity. Matter of fact, it's been bastardized. It's turned into this whole thing where you can't just go and bully someone. You can't use your rank on people. You can't harass people. You can't assault folks. I mean, what are we going to do with all these women that are around us in the military? Why can't we assault them? It's lowering any kind of accountability for your actions. No retribution. Think of the words that he's saying and don't take them too lightly. These are the type of things they'll say and say, well, I mean, it's only for, I'm not talking about toxic bullying. I'm just talking about toxicity and bullying. What else are you talking about? So that'll of course be unleashed primarily on new recruits, because again, he watches too many movies, and I guess to a degree, I wasn't in the military. We'll see, but what he definitely wants is a lot more of those scenes from Forrest Gump where the guy's screaming in his face.
We will not.
Hold on. We lost it for a second. Coming back. Hold on. Here.
We will not lose warfighters because we failed to train or equip them or resource them. Shame on us if we do. Train like your warriors' lives depend on it, because they do. To that point, basic training is being restored to what it should be: scary, tough, and disciplined. We're empowering drill sergeants to instill healthy fear in new recruits, ensuring that future warfighters are forged. Yes, they can shark attack, they can toss bunks, they can swear, and yes, they can put their hands on recruits. This does not mean they can be reckless or violate the law, but they can use tried and true methods to motivate new recruits, to make them the warriors they need to be. Back to basics at basic as well.
You hear that, new recruits? You're going to come in, you're going to be abused, you're going to be mentally abused so you can turn you into a war fighter, a brainless war fighter who has nothing apparently else on his mind except for killing people, hunting them down, having lesser accountability. We're going to get away from all those woke rules of engagement internationally. We're just going to take your brain out and put in a killing machine and then send you out there. And if you don't like it, I mean, resign. We'll kick your ass out. Because that's the United States of America under Donald Trump. It's vicious, it's savage, and it's all for the pleasure of the president. As Pete Hegseth said, bro, I'm not done. Because what he definitely doesn't like is when anyone has any accountability. Again, one more time, this is the party that likes to talk about personal responsibility, and maybe not the MAGA party. What they'll say is everyone else is supposed to have personal responsibility, but at the same time, they do anything they want. They're brainless in the things that they do. There should be no accountability. When their incompetence is exposed for the world to see, you just cover that up, because we have to keep this same narrative that these white Christian men that are all running this government, these racists that are running this government, these white supremacists, that anything they do is on the up and up. And when we see that that's not the case, let's change reality and tell people that's what's going on. Because what he definitely doesn't want is accountability, because it could ruin one of these guys' careers.
But you should not pay for earnest mistakes for your entire career. And that's why today, at my direction, we're making changes to the retention of adverse information on personnel records that will allow leaders with forgivable, earnest, or minor infractions to not be encumbered by those infractions in perpetuity. People make honest mistakes, and our mistakes should not define an entire career. Otherwise, we only try not to make mistakes, and that's not the business we're in. We need risk takers and aggressive leaders and a culture that supports you. But you should not pay.
A culture that supports you means this military is going to back you up when you do wrong things, when you commit war crimes, because we're lessening the rules on that too, when you assault people, when you break rules, when you bully, when you intimidate, when these generals or whoever it is that's these drill sergeants that he wants screaming in people's faces, when they can then, as he said, put hands on them, there's no accountability for their actions. I mean, things that should normally just be, excused and let go. We can't keep punishing people for doing things that they do wrong, because that could ruin someone's entire career, he says. So last part of at least this aspect of his speech, when he was talking about how he wants to have these war fighters that have no accountability for their actions and then just kill people indiscriminately. Here's his last cherry on the top of that cake.
A few months ago, I was at the White House when President Trump announced his Liberation Day for America's trade policy. It was a landmark day. Well, today is another Liberation Day. The liberation of America's warriors, in name, in deed, and in authorities. You kill people and break things for a living. You are not politically correct and don't necessarily belong always in polite society. A few months ago, I was at the White House when President Trump announced his Liberation Day for America's trade policy. It was a landmark day. Well, today is another Liberation Day. The liberation of America's warriors, in name, in deed, and in authorities. You kill people and break things for a living. You are not politically correct and don't necessarily belong always in polite society.
We should pay attention. The people that he wants in his modern, redesigned, accountability-free military says you should kill people and break things for a living. This is your Liberation Day. This is your Liberation Day. You don't have to hide in the shadows anymore and think about all the racist and bigoted things that you believe in, the types of folks that you think shouldn't exist. You can come into this very white supremacist-based military and then say anybody that I see, because I'm in this war that we keep starting, yeah, I can do whatever I want, and this military will back me up because there's no more accountability. We don't follow rules of engagement. We start wars and call it peace. All that was said. All of that was very, very blatantly said. He's not speaking fast. He's not giving any kind of weird innuendo. He's telling you exactly what it's about. And I mean, maybe you guys are seeing me talking about the white supremacy aspect of this. By the way, uh, we're gonna be here for a while. Not just with this story. There's a lot going on today, but I really wanted to break down the importance of this guy's speech because I think a lot of people are going to be probably analyzing it, looking at what he's saying, and the response is a lot of times going to be, "Look at Pete Hegseth, that clown. He thinks he can walk around and pose on stage with his stupid ass smirks," which all are true. That analysis is going to be very true, but I think we should listen very closely to what it is that he's saying because we started with the loyalty to Trump, less accountability, more bullying, and more preemptive wars, aggression, killing, murder. Here's the aspect when he wants to make sure that you guys all know this is going to be a white male-based army or military as much as he can handle it. I mean, of course, other folks can be involved, but you definitely have to be a part of this apparatus.
It's not their fault. It's not your fault. As foolish and reckless as the woke department was, those officers were following elected political leadership. An entire generation of generals and admirals were told that they must parrot the insane fallacy that, quote, our diversity is our strength. Of course, we know our unity is our strength. They had to put out dizzying DEI and LGBTQI plus statements. They were told females and males are the same thing, or that males who think they're females is totally normal. They were told that we need a green fleet and electric tanks. They were told to kick out Americans who refuse an emergency vaccine. They followed civilian policies set by foolish and reckless political leaders. Our job, my job, has been to determine which leaders simply did what they must to answer the prerogatives of civilian leadership, and which leaders are truly invested in the woke department, and therefore incapable of embracing the War Department and executing new lawful orders. That's it. It's that simple.
More purging language here from Pete Hegseth. This insane fallacy that our diversity is our strength. What we need is certain looks of people. We need certain skin tones of folks because anything else obviously is inferior. Because what's running the country and now this military are white supremacists. This idea that anyone else doesn't have the same mental, physical capacities that this guy thinks he's got, that he's been put on full display to not having. But that doesn't matter. Reality doesn't matter to these fascists. They've now got control of the military. Now they're trying to coalesce that power around anyone else that's still in the military who has any mindset that's like, this is weird. I don't think this should be a white supremacist-based military. He's letting you guys know this is what it's going to be. You know why? Because as he said earlier, you serve at the pleasure of the white supremacist president. He wasn't done talking about how very blatant he is as far as these policies of exclusion.
Justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department, to rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that shit. I've made it my mission to uproot, to remove.
You know, once the Secretary of War starts saying shit on stage, oh, he's really a badass now. Again, it's this message, man. This message is to make sure that you know what is it they want here. So I'm not sure the language or the things that people expected to see or hear from this guy once this, was going to be a publicly given speech. Um, but if we're waiting for him to, I mean, they already did it with Elon Musk, to toss out some Heil Hitler signs or to blatantly say, listen, I mean, as Charlie Kirk always said, these black folks are inferior to us because of their existence. They don't have the same capacities. He doesn't have to say it as blatantly. He just praised the people that did say it and then present this new culture of this military that demeans certain people, releases all kinds of rules of normalcy and equality, and then make sure that you call it. There's no more DEI officers, chicks in dresses, guys that think they're chicks wearing skirts, all that derogatory talk that they keep saying because they need to, hide whatever kind of insecurities that they've got, or honestly, attractions that they have for the people that they keep saying that they hate. This has to be this whole approach where he's talking about how badass he is. As a matter of fact, let me show you guys how he wrapped up this part of his speech. Because again, this is a presentation. This is an audition. Don't forget, Pete Hegseth was the Fox and Friends weekend guy. He wasn't there for the weekdays. He was just the weekend guy. So he's there giving speeches, reading teleprompters. That's like his wheelhouse, except he's also a rabid racist and a bigot and also, a misogynist. But this is what he has to add on to it because you got to remember, he works for Donald Trump and they're always selling something.
Serving alongside troops who are out of shape, or in combat unit with females who can't meet the same combat arms physical standards as men, or troops who are not fully proficient on their assigned weapons, platform, or task, or under a leader who was the first, but not the best. Standards must be uniform, gender neutral, and high. I don't want my son.
It's his son that he wants not serving in these roles. By the way, he's talked more extensively about physical standards and he's saying that we've lowered them for women and all that, but they were actually lowered for more than just women. But also in those standards, in the highest roles where physical capabilities are necessary, they weren't lowered. Matter of fact, Tammy Duckworth talked about the things that she did, that war veteran that gave her limbs to our country, as someone who can fly fighter jets, things like that. He just ignores those types of things because his main purpose here is to go back to his insecurities of protecting who he needs to make sure he promotes as being the most superior humans in the world. And in order to make that false statement a reality, you have to eliminate any other competition so that you don't get embarrassed. Because every time Pete Hegseth has any kind of straightforward direct fight, he has to be embarrassed about it. Because his name is Pete Hegseth, the same guy who put up that Signal chat and got got freed from that. Talk about a lack of accountability. The guy put forward all these war plans, these top secret things, and put them out on Signal chats. And when that was found out, as the culture changed, the loser, incompetent president said, well, it's an honest mistake. Why have your whole career be messed up by leaking war plans on a Signal chat? That's the level of expertise and greatness that Pete Hegseth is over here talking about. This is a clip I want to play about what he's selling. This is the selling part. I promise we're almost done with this guy.
Foolish and reckless political leaders set the wrong compass heading, and we lost our way. We became the woke department, but not anymore. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that shit. Removing the distractions, clearing the way for leaders to be leaders. You might say we're ending the war on warriors. I heard someone wrote a book about that.
In case you didn't pick up on the obvious line there. As you can say, we're releasing the war on warriors. Someone wrote a book about that. I think it was me. Yeah, Pete Hegseth wrote a book called The War on Warriors. I looked it up. And since he's plugging his book to military leaders that he forced to come and have this, presentation meeting where it's very self-aggrandizing and also making sure they know that they're changing the entire culture to be a follower and a foot soldier to Donald Trump, a loyalty pledge. Since that's his mindset, I was like, I wonder what this book is about. So I looked up a couple reviews about that book. War on Warriors is the name of the book, and this is one of the first reviews. Said I was sent this book from a conservative group that I donate to, and I sent it back. Filthy, insulting, almost maniacal at times. Hard to read and not well written. He needs a ghostwriter or a much better editor. I disliked Hegseth before for his insulting comments, calling female soldiers lesbians, etc. But I'm appalled at how much further he takes his rhetoric in the book. Hegseth is scary, and this book should never have been accepted for print. Okay, there's that. Okay, there's more. There's another review of War on Warriors. Hegseth. Their title for their post was Unhinged and Toxic. He thinks we should disregard the Geneva Conventions, and he's only in his early 40s, but has been married 3 times. Red flags everywhere. Okay, so that's a couple reviews. Maybe it's from, these disgruntled, angry women that are weak and can't really serve, and just rather just be in the kitchen since, one of them was upset about him calling all folks in the military that are women lesbians. Okay, here's another one. Okay, maybe this one isn't, as Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump would call it, a disgruntled woman. It says a one-sided view of the military from a misogynist. Damn. It says it's obvious that this author served very little time and as a weekend warrior from the very one-sided views he holds. As a 24-year veteran with 3 combat tours under my belt, I can say that he does not speak for those of us who gave our lives to active duty service to the country. Perhaps he should have spent more time serving and achieved more schooling and rank and experience before being given a microphone. And I guess, the microphone is just his book that he's not promoting. Again, to these military leaders. Does he expect them to read it? Maybe as they all walked out, they gave them a copy and said, read this. This is how you're going to really understand the warrior ethos that Pete Dumbfuck Hegseth keeps talking about. One more review. It said, awful book with incredibly stupid rhetoric. Bought this a month or 2 ago, and it reads like you would expect from someone who styles themselves as some sort of alpha male. Those are some of the reviews from the book. There were some praiseworthy ones as well, where they basically said the same thing that Hegseth is saying. So if you agree with him on all those points about lack of accountability, this should be a whites only straight Christian male army, sure, you'll agree with him because that's what apparently what he outlined in that book. Man, something is in my eye. Apparently that's what it is that he's looking to outline in that book, and people noticed it. There's your Secretary of War, falling behind a guy who said he wants to be the president of peace. This is where we are. I'm gonna pause for a second for those of you guys who maybe just came in and seeing this long, detailed response to what Pete Hegseth has been talking about today, but I think it's important. So I hope this isn't like, it's a little bit of a slower moving feel to the hour, but I went through this stuff, man. I think it's so important that we really take a dive into everything that these guys, not even everything, man. I took this, that's a light brush that I took over the things that Pete Hegseth was talking about. I'm not sure how long he spoke, but I think it's important to see a lot of this stuff. So what I didn't realize, and like I said, this is what took me so long, but also one other programming note here for the stream. We're going to be here longer than an hour. Sorry, you guys. So if you're going to go to TDR in like 20 minutes, make sure we're going to come back. We're still talking about what this guy, Donald Trump, also said to the military. And after that, the state of the economy. And I'm not lying to you, that situation with Argentina, you guys really, just this morning that I had no idea what's going on with that situation. But still, I want to jump over to what Donald Trump then had to say. Because again, I was trying to plan this. I kept stacking all these things. Every time Pete Hegseth said something else stupid, I was like, I got to talk about it. So then suddenly things switched over and I saw Donald Trump's face. and he said, I'm going to go speak to the military leaders too. So if anybody could have possibly made this day of speaking to military leaders and embarrassing us on a world stage even worse, it's this guy, Donald Trump, who then went there. And you can probably imagine the types of things that he had on his mind to only talk about. This is him speaking to reporters as he was about to head over and speak to the military leaders. Look at his objectives.
The Department of War in this address. Why gather all the generals in one place for the speech?
Well, this is only an esprit de corps. You know what esprit de corps is? This is only a spirit. We're going to be talking to him. Pete Hegseth is talking right now. I'm going to have to leave because I have to talk to him. But these are our generals, our admirals, our leaders. And it's a good thing. A thing like this has never been done before because they came from all over the world. And there's a little bit of expense, not much, but there's a little expense to that. We don't like to waste it. Would rather spend it on bullets and rockets, frankly. But this was the one time we had to do a great spiritizing. It's going to be great. I've seen it already. We have every general, every admiral. We have great people. We have our real warriors over there. And when they're not good, when we don't think they're our warriors, you know what happens? We say, you're fired. Get out. We had some real bad ones last time. You know,
You see how that whole weave went that Trump was talking about? We've got all these folks here. It's a huge expense to get all these people here from all over the world. But you know what? I think it's necessary because then once I look them in the face and I get a chance to talk to them and I get to assess whether or not they're going to be loyal to me, as again, I pointed out when this was going to be happening, this is going to be a loyalty test. This is going to be a purge for anyone who isn't. And this was the main purpose of it. He didn't say it once, he said it twice.
This time. So I'm going over, I'm going to be meeting with generals and with admirals and with leaders. And if I don't like somebody, I'm going to fire them right on the spot.
So he's going to be meeting with admirals and generals and military leaders. If he doesn't like them, he ran off before someone could ask him, what would you like or dislike about a military leader that would make you fire them on the spot? Is this a loyalty test? It's almost like they're repeating everything that these Nazis did, that Adolf Hitler did. So as they collected this group of all these military leaders, it was a loyalty test. He's not hiding it. It's not like this is hidden behind the scenes like, oh, some roving reporter snuck in the room and stuck a cell phone camera in front of them and he heard Donald Trump whisper. It's a loyalty test for all you generals and admirals. He said it in front of the press. He doesn't expect any of us to care. He thinks that we're supposed to follow him like he's some kind of king. Telling you, back in 2015 and 16, the guy was saying that's what he wants. He wants to be a king. And he thinks he's now got the military in his power to wield it any way that he wants. And if they don't want to, they will be purged. So, following along with his divisive language, and we've been seeing this a lot lately. So like I've been saying before too, this guy thinks he has now control of the military, and what he has to weaponize them against, of course, are his political enemies.
Gave him a big party on the lawn, brought some of them into the Oval Office. But on top of all this, we'll deliver a hard-earned pay raise of 3.8% to every soldier, sailor, airman, Coast Guardsman, Space Guardman, and Marine, something you weren't getting from the past administration. They did not treat you with respect. They're Democrats. They never do.
Just a blatant statement. Oh, we're going to give you all this stuff, and Democrats never did that because they don't like you. They don't respect you. Coming from the guy who called, who called John McCain a loser because he got captured. Previous to that, he was considered a war hero because he stood his ground there while being tortured and, stood there and took it. But this guy wants to keep changing history and talking about how everyone else treated them badly because, the Democrats didn't overwhelmingly give to the military, didn't overspend on the military at all, doesn't always talk about how much we have to spend and spend and invade and then intervene. It's not like Democrats ever did any of that stuff. The rewriting of history, as far as how much we've always pushed for our military to do anything that it wants and be funded at extreme levels while the citizens of this country suffer despite all that stuff, it's overwhelming. But this guy thinks he can tell enough people, those Democrats, they didn't like you. They didn't like you much at all because they didn't give you more money, but they actually did. So like I said, the targeting and the whole reason this guy wants to have his military under his belt is to then target it on American citizens. It's almost like we've been saying this.
Only in recent decades did politicians somehow come to believe that our job is to police the far reaches of Kenya and Somalia, while America is under invasion from within. We're under invasion from within. No different than a foreign enemy, but more difficult in many ways because they don't wear uniforms. At least when they're wearing a uniform, you can take them out. These people don't have uniforms. But we are under invasion from within. We're stopping it very quickly. That's what it is.
He's talking to military leaders. We're under invasion from within. Long gone are the days of any kind of international military intervention. Long gone are those days. Our military should be used to attack American citizens. That's what Donald Trump is telling you. And he's not done telling you that. He's very blatant. He's very explicit. Let me make sure this starts right.
What they've done to San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, they're very unsafe places. And we're going to straighten them out one by one. And this is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war, too. It's a war from within. Controlling the physical territory of our border is essential to national security. We can't let these people in. What they've done.
San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, what they've done to these cities. Who's they? Who's they that Donald Trump is now looking to sic active military members on in our country? He was talking to the leader that was running CCOT, and he said, homegrowns are next. That was at the beginning of this term. And people were like, oh man, that's a troubling thing to hear. Okay, moving on. This is them now installing this kind of rhetoric, this kind of policy. He's going to send the military to the people that he thinks are against him. The enemy from within. It's also the thing that he said during the campaign. When us crazy people with Trump derangement syndrome were pulling our hair out indiscriminately, talking about how because he called the Americans that he doesn't like, the enemy within, very authoritarian and Nazi-like talk. Oh, he's just trolling you guys. You libs get so exaggerated with these things. That is until he's standing in front of a bunch of military leaders that he said, if you don't like what I'm doing, get out or I'll fire you. And those of you that want to continue on down this road, get on board because we're going to attack that enemy within.
Things ever. But we took care of them. We took good, strong care of them. And I just want to thank the National Guard in Washington, D.C. It's embarrassing to say this. Now I can say it because we solved it. But Washington, D.C. was the most unsafe, most dangerous city in the United States of America. And to a large extent, beyond that. You go to Afghanistan, they didn't have anything like that. You go to countries that you would think there's problems, they didn't have that. And now Washington, D.C., after 12 days of serious intensity, we took out 1,700 career criminals, one of the worst.
He doesn't know anything he's talking about. When he brings up Afghanistan, and he's like, if you go to these other countries that you would think are horrible, Washington, D.C. was much worse. When he says you would think are horrible, it's in his pea brain. He goes, let me come up with some countries that I'm afraid of. Oh, Afghanistan. I mean, DC was worse than that. If you see what's happening in Afghanistan versus what's happening in DC, it's worse. What's happening? No one asks, not that this was a press conference, but when he says this thing in front of press all the time, no one asks him, yo, what is it about Afghanistan that makes it worse and more, I'm sorry, the DC that makes it more dangerous than Afghanistan? What did you hear? Because you said if you look at it. Well, I'm looking. Maybe you could direct me to what it is I'm looking at. And yes, he says he's coming for the inner cities too. You know how he talks.
Fire department. I always put the fire department in because they're great. They're great. And I got 95% of their vote too. That helps. When you get 95% of their vote, you always have to mention them. But they're great. And they're brave in our inner cities, which we're going to be talking about, because it's a big part of war now. It's a big part of war. But the firemen go up on ladders and you have people shooting at them while they're up on ladders. I don't even know if anybody heard that. And I said, don't talk about it much, but I think you have to. Our firemen are incredible. They're up on one of these ladders that goes way up to the sky, rescuing people, and you have animals shooting at them, shooting bullets at firemen that are way up in death territory. You fall off that ladder, it's over. Fire department.
So this is how he speaks of American citizens. We're going to those inner cities because that's where, let me get the quote right, because it's a big part of war now. Inner cities to Donald Trump is a big part of war now. War, you know, that whole thing that this guy keeps calling himself the peaceful president over. But as long as you're a minority in an inner city, because, you know, that's the trigger word for people like him, then we're at war with you now because these animals on the ground are shooting at firefighters. I mean, it's not like he already told us how he feels about anyone else that isn't him or doesn't look like him or that's convinced him that, you know, they'll go along with him and bow down to him, you know, the way that Byron Donalds and Tim Scott do. They'll make sure that they bow down and kiss his feet. They're one of the good ones. We're not at war with those good black people. We're at war with the ones who are too defiant and uppity and like to talk back, you know. Those are the ones we're at war with. Those animals. Fuck this guy. This guy is one of the worst people ever in existence. What a hateful piece of shit. As he's talking about savage behavior and preemptive war, but everyone else is an animal. Shooting at firefighters. The guy's one of the worst humans here. And look at him standing in front of military leaders, knowing that enough people are going to eventually realize it. And the guns are already pointed in our faces. In fact, that's what it is that he loves so much. Here he is on this self-aggrandizing part of his speech where he's talking about all the toys that he thinks are his to play with because he's like a 5-year-old getting a new jet.
That's enough to buy a lot of battleships, Admiral, to use an old term. I think we should maybe start thinking about battleships, by the way. You know, we have a Secretary of the Navy came to me because I look at the Iowa out in California and I look at different ships and the old pictures. I used to watch Victory at Sea. I love Victory at Sea. Look at these admirals. It's got to be your all-time in black and white. And I look at those ships. They came with the destroyers alongside of them, and man, nothing was going to stop. They were 20 deep, and they were in a straight line, and there was nothing going to stop them. And we actually talk about, you know, those ships. Some people would say, no, that's old technology. I don't know. I don't think it's old technology when you look at those guns, but it's something we're actually considering, the concept of battleship. Nice 6-inch sides, solid steel, not aluminum that melts if it looks at a missile coming at it. Starts melting as the missile's about 2 miles away. Now, those ships, they don't make them that way anymore, but you look at it and your secretary likes it, and I'm sort of open to it. And bullets are a lot less expensive than missiles. A lot of reasons. I should take a vote, but I'm afraid to take that vote because I may get voted out on that one. But I tell you, it's something we're seriously considering. There were powers. There were big powers. They were just about as mean and scary as you could be. And so we're looking at that. One of the
battleships. He wants battleships because those are fun toys, not aluminum. Just rambling, just an old man rambling about his fantasies of murder, of mass murder, and being a tough guy. I mean, it looks so much better. I mean, it costs so much different. I mean, I'd rather have bullets. I mean, let's bring back some cannons. Let's have these powered cannons where I pull the damn string. This guy, he mentioned black and white movies of battleships. This motherfucker is the one that's running this country, talking about the toys that he thinks he can play with. You know what? I'm gonna skip really fast to this one because since we're talking about the things that he likes to see, he kept a straight face and told military leaders from across the world, American militaries that are stationed across the world, this about what he thinks about the way that things should look. Again, these are his toys that he thinks he gets to play with.
The Second World War, they were freighters and different types, but we were doing a ship a day, and now we don't do ships. And I'm not a fan of some of the ships you do. I'm a very aesthetic person, and I don't like some of the ships you're doing aesthetically. They say, oh, it's stealth. I said, that's not stealth. An ugly ship is not necessary in order to say you're stealth. By the way, the B-2 bombers were incredible. That is stealth. They went into that. I was one of the...
Donald Trump is an aesthetic person. As he, posts about all the gold-plated shit that's in the White House, in the Oval Office, in the gold-plated ballroom that he's building. He's an aesthetic person. What he wants to make sure you guys know is make sure the battleships are gold-plated. These jets, they're not incognito enough. We need gold on them. So again, speaking to military leaders, this guy, one of his objectives, I mean, after the loyalty pledges and the talks of savage behavior and attacking Americans, and after all that, it's I'm an aesthetic guy and I don't like the way these things look. They have to look different for me. My toys don't look how I want them to look. What's with that ugly color? Ew, you mean army green? Ew, that's so ugly. I don't like it. Let's change the color. It's such a clownish administration. It's such a clownish person overall. He even thinks that everything, as far as the naming of this equipment, is about him. He literally thinks it.
I didn't name it. I did not name it. Boeing came in and they said, sir, this is our submittal. It's the greatest fighting jet ever done. And, they're testing all these planes. All the companies are testing, and this one tested like through the roof. And they said, we'd like to name it the F-47. I said, all right, let me think about it. Then after thinking for about 2 seconds, I said, okay. That means 47. I'm 47. So I'm 45, 46, and 47. Yeah, if you think about it. I just don't want the credit for 46. I don't want to have their open borders and people coming in from all over the world, including jails and mental institutes. I don't want that on my record, but I like having it. I didn't name.
He's 45, 46, and 47. And it's obvious. I mean, the fighter jets are named after 47. They're named after him because Donald Trump thinks he's the most important person in the world, when in reality, he's actually the dumbest person in the world, and keeps displaying how embarrassing it is to have to live under this trash ass person who thinks everything revolves around him. And then when those things are affected by him, they get screwed up. And, as he's talking about how he doesn't want the 4 years under 46 to have to be dealt with. You mean that time when the economy was decent, and since then you've screwed the whole thing up? He doesn't want any connection to that. He wants a connection to tariffs and inflation and horrific policies and job losses. That's what he wants a connection to. It's loser. So as usual, as he's taking everyone's money, this is his full objective. And the reasons behind it we've just covered, because he wants the gold-plated planes, he wants the things named after him, and he wants to have toys to unleash them on whoever it is that he wants. But this is how he's going to get there.
It's not to protect anyone's feelings. It's to protect our republic. And it's the republic that we dearly love. It's to protect our country. We will not be politically correct when it comes to defending American freedom, and we will be a fighting and winning machine. We want to fight, we want to win, And we want to fight as little as possible. You have to count on people like me to keep you out of wars, because we don't want to go into wars. Many of the wars that I just told you about, we could have entered those wars and settled them in a different way, lose a lot of our troops. And we could have settled them, I guess, differently. Maybe not, actually. Actually, you might not have been able to settle them. We just would have been in the middle of a lot of firepower. But when we do need it, you're going to be so ready. And you know it. But very importantly, with that goal in mind, I've committed to spending over $1 trillion on our military in 2026, and that's the most in the history of our country. $1 trillion, that's a lot of money. I hope you like that. Ma'ams and sirs, I hope you like it. That's a hell of a lot of money. We have the best of everything.
$1 trillion. So forget to talk about how often previous administrations, previous Congress, all of them have been a part of overloading the military with all this money that we've lost, money that we've wasted, money that we have no idea where it went and how we did it. But we just build things, and as they get old, we hand them off to some other police departments because we never got a chance to get around all those armored vehicles, all the things that he's deployed out through Washington, D.C. and other cities in the country. That stuff, we just got to keep building more of it. Or as a matter of fact, let's put $1 trillion towards this savage war-fighting machine that's going to not only attack internationally and completely ignore all kinds of rules of engagement, as Pete Hegseth talked about, but they're then going to go fight that war from within in those inner cities and in those blue states so we can squash them and kill them. I guess the majority of us are just waiting to get killed because that's what he's talking about. He finished talking about how he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. He mentioned it's by the way, the number of wars that he's ended has jumped from 7 to 8 mysteriously, and he couldn't even remember who the hell it was that he said that he was ending wars with. It's more lies. It's nonsense. I had more from this guy talking, but I'm tired of him. I want to relate back to what it is that now, because he and Pete Hegseth are so obsessive about their control over the military, what it's doing to then regular folks, and his mindset being on setting $1 trillion towards the military next year. But I want to pause for a second for all those who had to take off, go to TDR. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. I got one last story though, and it's not on these two guys in their speeches, although I think it's very important. Did I overdo it? I'm open to I'm open to, like, positive, or at least a little bit of critiques here. I'm open to it. Was that boring? Because I thought it was very important and fascinating to listen to these guys directly detail how it is that they're looking to utilize the military to attack us, to attack others, and to loosen all kinds of rules and regulations that are standard, all based in a war ethos of a bunch of fucking dummies. Yeah. So glad for those of you guys that are here. If you got some friends that took off to TDR, tell them to catch up later. I've got one more story on what's going on with our economy. And bro, I'm going to get to the Argentina bailout situation, which I think a lot of people have been seeing and reading about. But I read a little bit deeper, and it doesn't take that much of a deep dive to see how horrific and devastatingly stupid these guys really are. Don't forget, we're still in the middle of all these trade deals that he says he's signing, that he has signed zero of, and all of this infrastructure and trillions of dollars of investments coming in that we still haven't seen. But this is what Howard Lutnick has to say now, because he's still trying to pass this off as some kind of successful economy. Check this out.
Reports suggest that we've lost up to 80,000 manufacturing jobs since the president took office. Walk me through that tension there, that contradiction.
Well, it can't be true. I mean, sure, the first day, you walk in from the Biden administration, and what happens on the next Friday, they blame Donald Trump, which is silly, right? The tariff world is going to bring in the greatest building of advanced manufacturing. It's not it's not the country's ever seen. It's not even possible, the scale.
Reports suggest that we've
Well, that's the first bit of truth that Howard Lutnick decided to tell. It's not even possible. The promises that I'm making as far as this economy and all the investments that's coming in and the boom and the golden era that's happening, but not happening yet, but it's going to happen at the end of the year, at the beginning of next year, but it's still happening right now. All those lies that he keeps telling, it's not even possible for you to imagine. It's not possible. You know why it's not possible? Because none of that shit is happening. Matter of fact, here's the normalcy of blaming Biden while at the same time claiming success. It doesn't make any sense. But here's more of Nutlick.
The 2025 is a mixture of Biden's economy and Donald Trump's economy, right? The first quarter was weird because everybody knew tariffs were coming. So there were huge amounts of imports, but that's over. Now you have a 3.8% growth in Donald Trump's first full quarter in office. Pretty darn amazing. So I am really proud of our president. I'm really proud of the way he's attacking this economy. And I think Americans through 2026 are going to feel how incredibly exciting our employment opportunities are. All these construction jobs coming fast and furiously. The 2020.
This fool said the beginning of the year was a little weird. That's how economists speak and talk about the plans that they have and the results that they get. It's a little bit weird, but you know what? The next quarter is going to get better. And guess what? The next thing's going to happen better after that. And the next better after that. I've been promising this shit constantly, but what they don't expect for people, I don't know how they expect people to survive up to the point where they're still making these promises that are still based in nothing. These are promises. There's no information behind it. There's no illustration of these deals that are in place, the deals that are necessary, because Donald Trump blew the whole thing up in the first place and made things worse. So, of course, as he mentioned, when people knew that these were coming in, these tariffs were coming in, they tried to prepare for it. I mean, the people that had enough money, the bigger corporations that could stockpile enough product before all those tariffs start damaging them and their customers. Before that happened, which is going to get worse as things keep going. That was the weird part of the year, but it was still Joe Biden's fault. It's weird though, because the small business administrator, her name is Kelly Loeffler. She works for this administration. She works for this administration. And I guess they're given a little bit of a free rein to tell a couple of bits of truth. This is a Trump administration official saying this.
As I've walked factory floors, small businesses, main streets with business owners and employees alike, they're feeling the impacts of high inflation, whether it's in their car purchases, their credit cards, buying a home. And small businesses would expand, but the cost of capital right now is disproportionately high to where we are in the interest rate cycle. As I've walked factory floors.
Well, apparently families are feeling the pain. Kelly Loeffler pointed out these businesses, small businesses are feeling the pain. Okay, so she acknowledged it and she admitted it. So what happens next? A lot of these folks, every once in a while, will admit what's going on, but they'll never say, therefore, we have to move on. Therefore, this policy has to change. Therefore, this president was lying about this, that, and the third. There's never any results for these, awakenings, when they finally, go woke and realize that people are devastated and are talking about how they're being destroyed. So again, we've got the lack of investments that Howard Lutnick keeps talking about. Businesses suffering, prices going up. Here's some of those prices that are going up. It's weird. This is now on Fox Business. It's odd how suddenly they're allowed to say a couple of things that are true because you can no longer lie about it.
Kelly, beef prices are higher. I got that. How much more are we actually paying?
Yeah, you're really going to be treating yourself at the grocery store, Stu. Take a look at this. For ground beef, prices are up about 14% year over year, or I should say 13%, I believe. Roast, 14%. Steaks, 17%.
Kelly?
I know, a lot of people, it's probably better for you not to eat beef, specifically our beef, but then just red meat in general as you age. Your doctors may have told you that, but for those of you that still do, yeah, those beef prices aren't looking so good. Laura Ingraham, I think a week or two ago, was talking about she went and got a nice filet mignon from the store, and she went herself. How congratulatory for her. She went to the store on her own and got her own filet mignon that cost like $30. Oh my God. because she's struggling in her lying position over at Fox News. But they allowed these folks to finally talk about what is it they're seeing in front of them, because I guess they figure the game's already been given up, and if people start seeing it, it doesn't matter. This was where this whole discussion on the economy and these tariff wars and these trade wars that Donald Trump keeps pushing, how it took a big turn for me. Did you guys see this? This is an image. I'll let for it to come up. This is an image of Scott Bessent, the guy who sounds like Herman Munster, talking on TV all the time. Someone got a picture over his shoulder of his, phone, and he got a text, they say, from Brooke Rollins, the ag secretary. Brooke Rollins likes to go on TV and kiss Trump's ass too. So in this particular thing, they pointed out that part of it said Argentina sold a large amount of soybeans to China when we would normally be selling to them. This gives China more leverage over us. But I was like, what else was said? How come no one transcribed the whole rest of that message? There's a lot more written there, as you can see. So let me tell you what I didn't saw. It was a little bit blurry once I got to it, so I think this was it. Here's the full text from Brooke Rollins to Scott Bessent. She said, "Just a heads up, I'm getting more intel, but this is highly unfortunate. We bailed out Argentina yesterday, and in return, the Argentines removed their export tariffs on grains, reducing their price, and sold a bunch of soybeans to China at a time when we would normally be selling to China. Soy prices dropping further because of it. This gives China more leverage on us." Couple this development of these idiots just figuring out, when you have a trade war with a huge country like that, where so many of our businesses rely on that export to survive, when you cut that off and say, "Oh, we're going to fold our arms, you can do what we want, China, because we don't need you, you need us." That's what Donald Trump literally said multiple times. So now Scott Bessent, his guy, his smart billionaire economic guy, is getting texts talking about how Argentina screwed us up. Do you guys know the history or the story behind this whole Argentina thing? Because I didn't know the full details, and I looked a little bit into it. So in case you didn't know, this is how bad this is. Maybe you guys remember when Elon Musk was gifted a golden chainsaw. Do you guys remember this? And that guy standing next to loser. The guy standing next to him is Argentina President Javier Milei. And Elon Musk and a bunch of other rich guys were very happy to support him. I mean, they were all on board to support this guy. And the reason that he had that chainsaw is because Javier Milei is like, I'm going to follow the same process that eventually Elon Musk did to our country. He came in with a chainsaw, dismantled the government, cut out all kinds of social safety net forms, cut out all kinds of research grants, all these things that we did here. Javier Milei did it first, and Elon Musk, unsurprisingly, was all on board with it, and matter of fact, fueled his rise to power. Elon Musk even posted about it because he was, so sure about it. He said prosperity is ahead for Argentina in relation to this picture of Javier Milei standing there in front of a "Don't Tread on Me" flag. Because, Javier Milei decided to make sure that, he's going to go ahead and play these guys for as much as possible. Elon Musk wasn't done. He was so on board with this guy. He loved everything that he was going to be doing. So much so that after Elon Musk had that picture where he said he had a great meeting with President Javier Milei, he said, "I recommend investing in Argentina." So to all of you other, rich guys, I invested in Argentina, and you should too. Let's let a smarter person talk about what it is that was going on in Argentina. His name is Ryan Grimm. Maybe you guys have heard of him. Great reporter, knows what he's talking about. And this is where the revelations about what's going on with Argentina and all of that support that Elon Musk and the rest of these rich guys, including Donald Trump, have for them. This is the problem.
Or with China. China has bought 0 soybeans from American farmers this year. China eats about 2/3 of all the soybeans around the world. Last year, China, I think, accounted for about 52% of soybean purchases. So in other words, without China buying soybeans from U.S. farmers, our farmers are utterly screwed. Now, the only other real alternatives for China are one, to grow them in China, and they're trying to do that long term, but really to purchase them from Brazil and also Argentina. Most of what they get, when they're not getting it from us, comes from Brazil, but Argentina is also a huge producer of soybeans. So last week, the Trump administration announced a $20 billion bailout of Argentina because Trump said he's supporting his friend in the upcoming election, Javier Milei. Javier Milei, you might remember, this is Elon Musk's buddy who did like a Doge type move on Argentina, and he drove the Argentinian economy into the ground, now needs a massive bailout. So Trump is offering this $20 billion lifeline. The same day that Trump and Bessent announced this lifeline, Reuters reports that Argentina is now shipping massive amounts of soybeans to China and cut its export taxes to zero. In other words, the American money that we're sending to Argentina is making up the gap. So Argentina now doesn't have to charge these export fees on its soybeans. So China gets a huge discount. So China is out there scrambling, trying to find soybeans to feed its population without buying American soybeans because they're in a trade war that we started with them. And Trump just made it much cheaper and easier for China to buy those from Argentina.
Donald Trump is the most incompetent, self-serving, shoot everyone else in the foot type of leader we'll ever see. So did we take all that in? It was almost 2 minutes worth of Ryan Grimm breaking down just that first part, because it gets worse. So you guys heard about the billions of dollars that we gave to Argentina to bail them out. It was to save Javier Milei, because Javier Milei did to his government what we did to ours. I'm sorry, what Donald Trump and Elon Musk did to ours, thinking this is a great standard. This is the approach that everyone should take. So since he took that approach, they donated, they invested in that country, thinking that it was going to be a golden era in Argentina, because they're cutting out and punishing every other citizen except for the rich, powerful, and connected. Same thing that they're doing here. After that whole thing fell apart, and also we have our trade war with China as far as soybeans, we bailed them out because Elon Musk and others invested in that country, betting on them to do well. When they don't do well, you have to bail them out because you have to save your own ass with our money. That's why they're stealing. It's one of the reasons why they're stealing our money. But here's the second half from Ryan Grimm, discussing how much worse this really is. This deal with Argentina, in coordination with the destruction of our economy here in America.
Now, there's another brutal aspect to this that isn't getting any coverage, and it's that American hedge funds invested heavily in Argentina after Milei was elected because they thought that his libertarian slash everything approach to the economy was actually going to turn things around and make Argentina a good investment. It didn't work at all. The economy collapsed. And so these American hedge funds were about to lose billions and billions of dollars on these stupid investments. But now Bessent, a former hedge fund guy, is the Treasury Secretary now, is coming in, and thanks to the bailout, the hedge funds are actually going to make a profit.
The people with power and control will always be in power and control. They'll take the money and they'll bail themselves out, saying, well, we're helping Argentina make Argentina great again. All you Americans, middle fingers for you. I've got to save my bad investments. None of these guys are good at actually doing what it is that they claim to be good at doing. They just have the power and position to fix their issues, to save themselves from losing money. And at the same time, where do they get that money? They got all that money from us by telling you to be mad at the trans woman over there, to be mad at the black person there, and at that Latino immigrant over there. And while you're doing all that and you hate everybody around you, they're picking your fucking pockets. And every time they mess up with their business dealings or investments in another country for some guy that they propped up to be the guy to fuck things up so that they can then make more money, and it doesn't work because their ideas don't work, you pay for it. And Scott Bessent has a message on his phone from the Ag Secretary saying, who could have seen this coming? Did you know that Argentina, after we bailed them out, fucked us over again? Here's Scott Bessent trying to explain it away.
I want to get your take on Argentina because, Mr. Secretary, Argentina's peso sliding, politics and capital outflows rattling investors there. Javier Milei, I guess, has lost the confidence of investors. They're pulling their money out of Argentina. They're fearful that he will scrap his defense of the peso. You say all options are on the table, from swap lines to direct currency support. What's the plan in terms of supporting Argentina? Is there one?
The plan is, as long as President Milei continues with his strong economic policies to help him, to bridge him to the election, I call this the screens moving to the streets. We are not going to let a disequilibrium in the market cause his a backup in his substantial economic reforms. I don't think the market has lost confidence in him. I think the market is looking in the rearview mirror and is looking at decades, if not a century, of terrible Argentinian mismanagement. And people are concerned. People are skittish. It's very hard to believe that it is different this time. But I believe with President Milei, it is. It is.
The president.
So the issues that are going on in Argentina, because Elon Musk helped that guy implement the same strategy that they've implemented here, is just a disequilibrium in the market. And this because of terrible Argentina mismanagement from years before. Don't those excuses sound just like the excuses that Howard Lutnick and the rest of these guys, Scott Bessent and Donald Trump, keep giving us? I mean, don't be so worried about it. It's just a little bit of a shakiness right now. It'll get better later, in 6 months, 9 months, in a year. And also, it's all Joe Biden's fault from that terrible mismanagement from the last administration. Do you see the same damn arguments happening? So apparently the same thing is happening in Argentina, but it's happening so well they needed that how much they give him? Billions of dollars of a bailout? What is that bailout worth? After he gave them all of that money, it's just a disequilibrium in the markets. Not a big deal. We're just taking your money and giving it to someone else. Last bet. Scott Bessent, as I pointed out, was a part of this idea to bail out Argentina. And it's partially because of Javier Milei. They want to save him. They even openly said it. They want to save his ass because now he's in political turmoil because he's destroyed their economy. And they need to get him to that next election to keep him in power because he's a good yes man in another country to do all of their bidding and they can invest in and make more money. That is until they screw it up and have to save themselves. Here's Scott Bessent's personal story of why he's doing this. Here it comes. Bessent's announcement had massive economic benefits for one American, this being this announcement of saving Argentina. Billionaire hedge fund manager Rob Citroni, who has placed large bets on the future of the Argentine economy. Citroni, the co-founder of Discovery Capital Management, is also a friend and former colleague of Bessent, a fact that has not been previously reported in American media outlets. Citroni, by his own account, helped make Bessent very wealthy. These two are good friends. They go way back to the hedge fund days of making all kinds of money. So now that Citroni was one of those investors, a bunch of money he's got into Argentina, and he's Bessent's best friend, Scott Bessent has to, pay it forward because you got to look out for each other. Since Javier Milei, a right-wing populist, became president in Argentina in December of 23, Citroni has invested heavily in that country. Citroni has bought Argentine debt and purchased equity in numerous Argentine companies that are closely tied to the performance of the overall economy. He is tied in. Due to Argentina's massive debt load and chaotic economic history, in 2023, Argentina's inflation rate was over 200%. Citroni purchased Argentine bonds with an interest rate of nearly 20%. And he's declined to detail exactly how much of the $2.8 billion that he manages is invested in Argentina. He doesn't really want to point that out. So as this whole thing was falling apart, Citroni was getting a little bit nervous. He's like, yo, I can't lose. How can I lose? I'm a billionaire who's always used other folks to make my money. Here's more information. In the short term, this appeared to be a savvy investment. After taking office, Milei fired, listen, you guys, to these similarities in what Elon Musk did in our government. After taking office, Milei fired tens of thousands of government workers, cut spending on welfare and research, and achieved fiscal balance. Inflation was reduced to around 40%, which spurred economic growth and foreign investment. Argentina's economic rebound contributed to Discovery Capital's 52% on return in 2024. Then it all came crashing down. Pause for a second, though. The similarities that I want to point out, we're talking about the firing of all these government workers, cutting spending on welfare and research, and all this stuff. They achieved fiscal balance and somehow got economic growth and foreign investment. The difference here is we're not getting that economic growth and foreign investment. Howard Lutnick keeps saying that there's foreign investments. Donald Trump keeps saying 4 trillion, 17 trillion, 8 trillion, a couple hundred billion. He just throws numbers around. We don't even have that. He's got some promises from some people, not based on any kind of trade agreements, that'll say, okay, if you give us this, we'll give you that, but we have control over it. And it's definitely not going to the American people. Any kind of investments that he thinks he's got, he's benefiting from. Donald Trump's family has doubled their wealth, I think, in the time that he's just been in office. Now they're benefiting off of the office and they're claiming that everyone's winning. That's how oligarchs work. They make money by controlling the government and then screw everyone else up by taking your money as efficiently as possible. It gets better. This Citroni situation and Scott Bessent, these two guys, these two criminals that have taken our money while you worry about a trans person that you've never met. The austerity measures slowed economic growth. This is where it got bad in Argentina. The austerity measures slowed economic growth, and unemployment spiked to nearly 8%. Millions had a harder time making ends meet after Milei reduced or eliminated subsidies for transportation, medicine, and other necessities. Milei's popularity slumped, leading to speculation that his party could be routed in the 2025 midterm elections, which would hamstring Milei's ability to implement his agenda. This created an economic panic, with investors dumping the peso and liquidating other Argentine assets. Milei has desperately attempted to keep inflation in check. Last week, Argentina's central bank spent more than $1 billion to shore up the peso, but Argentina was running out of foreign currency. They were in trouble. A bunch of Americans and I guess other folks were investing in this bet. The bet fell apart. The bet includes exactly what these guys are doing to our economy, or our country, and economy. And here's the kicker. Here's the last one. Bessent and the Trump administration then came to the rescue, floating that $20 billion economic package that helped stabilize the Argentine peso and function as a political lifeline for Milei. And in early September, days before Bessent's announcement of this bailout, Citroni purchased more Argentine bonds. Do we see it yet? I know it seems complicated, but I wanted to really take that whole extra 25, 30 minutes on this story because it seems like it's so complicated. That is until I just read like 3 articles and listened to a couple guys talk about the lies that they're telling about what it is that's going on and the people that they're saving. So again, even those posts, those memes that go, Donald Trump just gave $20 billion to Argentina, making Argentina great again. What they're doing is they're making their investors and other oligarchs save their asses from their bad business dealings. It's always the way it's been. They make their risks and we pay when they fuck up. I think it's pretty clear. So, as your prices go up, as you lose more jobs, as things continue to deteriorate, as businesses go out, as hospitals are closed, as our healthcare is stripped, and these guys keep talking about how you should be focusing on the trans athlete, all 2 of them, they're taking your money and they're giving it to people like Citroni and Scott Bessent because they're good friends and they go way back. They're like, let's pull the heist on America. They're too fucking stupid to pick up on it. Okay. If this is the first time you're hearing this, like it was for me today, to this depth, I knew about the bailout and I just didn't know why and how, and even the background of what Milei is going through. They're trying to save his ass. He's a bad politician. He's unpopular, and they're saving him and their money with ours. If you just now heard that, tell somebody today. Let them know. Forward them to an article about it. Forward them towards Ryan Grimm's 3.5, 4-minute talk on it. It's not that long. It's straightforward. The word needs to be spread about how much we're missing the ball on this. Do not be worried about some trans athlete when they're picking your pocket. It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, that's my hour and a half. Man, you guys drop, how many of you guys dropped off? Oh man. Anyways, so you guys will go over to TDR next. Let them know that we had an extra half an hour's worth. But no, these stories are going to go back up. The Pete Hegseth parts are going to go back up. Donald Trump parts are going to go back up. All those dangerous things that they said to our military for loyalty tests. And we're definitely going to upload this stuff about this Argentine bailout and the haphazard way that they're making sure they're taking our money to save their asses. They're not good at what they do. They just have control over our money. We'll see you guys tomorrow. It'll be Wednesday. This was a long, long day. Appreciate you guys, though. We'll see you guys on the backside of this.